If you're over 75 and you can still get up off the floor without using your hands, tie your own shoes without holding onto something, or carry 2 bags of groceries up a flight of stairs without stopping to catch your breath, stop scrolling for a second, because what I'm about to share with you might be one of the most important videos you watch this year. Most people think aging is something that just happens to you, like weather, like something you have no control over, and that by the time you hit your 70s or 80s, your body is basically running out the clock. But here's the truth nobody tells you. The people who are thriving in their 80s and 90s, the ones who are still gardening, still traveling, still playing with their great-grandkids on floor, they didn't get there by luck. They got there because somewhere along the way, whether they knew it or not, they built habits that most people abandon by the time they hit 50. And today, I want to walk you through exactly what those habits look like, because if you're doing even half of what I'm about to describe, you are not just aging, you are aging on your own terms. And that puts you in a category of people that modern medicine is only now starting to fully understand and appreciate. Let's start with something so simple most people overlook it completely, the way you get up out of a chair. This sounds almost too basic to matter, but researchers who study longevity have found that the ability to rise from a seated position without using your arms, your hands, or anything to push off from is one of the strongest predictors of how many more healthy years a person has left. It's not about strength alone, it's about balance, coordination, core stability, and the kind of full body control that most people quietly lose in their 50s and 60s without even noticing, because they never test it. If you can still do this, your body is telling you something remarkable, that the connection between your brain and your muscles, the nervous system pathways that control balance and movement, are still firing the way they did decades ago. And that connection, more than almost anything else, is what separates the people who stay independent well into their 90s from the people who end up needing a walker by 70. Now let's talk about grip strength, because this one surprises almost everyone. If you can still open a tight jar lid, wring out a wet towel, or hang from a bar for even a few seconds, you are demonstrating something doctors now consider a genuine biomarker of overall health. It turns out your hands are like a window into your entire cardiovascular and muscular system. Weak grip strength has been linked again and again to higher risks of heart disease, cognitive decline, and even earlier mortality, not because your hands themselves are the problem, but because grip strength reflects the health of your muscles, your nervous system, and your overall physical resilience all at once. So if you're someone who still has a strong handshake, who can still twist open that stubborn pickle jar without asking for help, understand that you are carrying a hidden advantage that most people your age simply don't have anymore, and it's worth protecting and building on rather than taking for granted. Then there's something even more revealing than physical strength, and that's your relationship with sleep. Most people assume that as you get older, poor sleep is just inevitable, tossing and turning, waking up at 3 in the morning, needing a nap by early afternoon just to function. But the healthiest agers, the ones truly in that top 1%, tend to report something different. They fall asleep without much struggle. They sleep through most of the night, and they wake up feeling like their body actually rested. This isn't a coincidence. Deep, consistent sleep is when your brain clears out waste products that, left to accumulate, are linked to memory decline and neurological disease. It's when your body repairs muscle tissue, regulates hormones, and essentially performs nightly maintenance on every system you rely on. If your sleep is still solid in your 70s and beyond, your body is quietly telling you that its internal repair systems are still functioning at a level most people lose decades earlier. And here's one that catches people off guard every single time: your sense of curiosity. Not your memory test scores, not your crossword puzzle habit, but genuine, active curiosity, wanting to learn something new, asking questions about things you don't understand, feeling excited rather than exhausted by new information. Neuroscientists have found that curiosity itself is tied to the release of dopamine in regions of the brain associated with learning and memory formation, which means the simple act of staying curious may actually be protecting your brain in real time, encouraging new neural connections at an age when most people's brains have settled into rigid, unchanging patterns. If you still find yourself wanting to understand how something works, still get a small thrill from learning a new fact, still ask why more than you say I already know, you are engaging a part of your brain that many people quietly stop using somewhere around retirement, and that ongoing engagement may be one of the most underrated tools for staying sharp well into your 90s. Here's part 2, same continuous style, no labels, ready to flow directly after part 1. Let's move into something that surprises a lot of people when they first hear it, and that's the connection between how fast you walk and how long you're likely to live. Doctors have a name for this. They call walking speed a vital sign. Right up there with blood pressure and heart rate, because it turns out the pace at which you naturally move through a room, through a parking lot, through your own kitchen, reflects an enormous amount about what's happening inside your body. A steady, confident walking pace requires your heart and lungs to deliver oxygen efficiently, your muscles to fire in coordinated bursts, your joints to move without pain holding you back, and your brain to process balance and spatial awareness all at the same time. If you're over 75 and you still walk at a pace that would make a younger person have to speed up just to keep beside you, that's not just a nice trait, it's a sign that dozens of systems inside your body are still cooperating the way they did when you were decades younger. And the reverse is true too. A slowing walking pace is often one of the earliest, quietest signals that something in the body needs attention, long before any other symptom shows up. So if you've still got that spring in your step, that's worth recognizing as a genuine marker of internal resilience, not just a coincidence of personality. Now here's one that doesn't get nearly enough attention: your appetite and your relationship with food. A lot of people assume that as you age, it's normal to lose interest in eating, to find meals feel like more of a chore than a pleasure, to eat less simply because nothing sounds appealing anymore. But among people who are aging exceptionally well, that's rarely the case. They still look forward to meals. They still have opinions about what they want to eat and what they don't. They still enjoy the social ritual of sitting down at a table with other people and sharing food, conversation, and time. This matters more than most people realize, because appetite is deeply tied to how well your digestive system, your metabolism, and even your brain's reward centers are functioning. A healthy appetite often means your body is still efficiently signaling hunger and fullness, still absorbing nutrients well, and still finding genuine pleasure in something as fundamental as eating. And that pleasure response, driven by the same brain chemistry involved in mood and motivation, is closely linked to a lower risk of depression and cognitive decline in older adults. So if food still excites you, if you still have a favorite dish you look forward to, or still enjoy trying something new at a restaurant, that enthusiasm is doing more for your long-term health than you might ever have guessed. Let's talk about something a little less physical and a lot more emotional, and that's your ability to laugh genuinely, easily, without forcing it. This might sound like a soft feel, good detail, but there is real physiology behind it. Laughter engages your diaphragm, increases oxygen intake, triggers the release of endorphins, and even temporarily lowers levels of stress hormones like cortisol circulating through your bloodstream. People who maintain a strong sense of humor into their later years tend to have lower rates of chronic inflammation, which researchers increasingly believe is one of the hidden drivers behind almost every major disease associated with aging, from from heart disease to Alzheimer's. But beyond the biology, there's something even more telling about a person who still laughs easily in their 70s, 80s, or 90s. It usually means they haven't hardened against the world, they haven't let decades of loss, difficulty, or disappointment close them off completely. They've found a way to hold on to lightness even while carrying the weight of a long life, and that emotional flexibility, that refusal to become bitter or numb, is consistently linked in longevity. Research to better mental health, stronger relationships, and yes, even longer lifespans. And this next one might be the most overlooked of all, your willingness to still make plans for the future. Not grand life-changing plans necessarily, just the simple, ordinary act of thinking ahead, planning a trip for next spring, signing up for a class 3 months from now, looking forward to a grandchild's graduation 2 years down the road. Buying a plant you know won't bloom until next season. This kind of forward thinking might seem small, but psychologists have found that a sense of future orientation, a belief that there is still more life ahead worth planning for, is strongly associated with both longer life expectancy and better mental health in older adults. It reflects something deep about a person's mindset, an underlying belief that tomorrow matters, that there's still more to experience, still more to look forward to. People who lose this future orientation, who stop making plans because they've quietly decided their story is basically finished, often see their physical and mental health decline faster, almost as if the body starts to follow the mind's lead. So if you're over 75 and you're still marking dates on a calendar, still saying next time we should, still leaving room in your life for things that haven't happened yet, you are carrying one of the most powerful, least talked about predictors of healthy, long aging that science has ever identified. Here's part 3, the closing section, same continuous style, bringing the script to a strong finish. Let's talk about something doctors call social reserve, and it might be the single most underrated factor in healthy aging that almost nobody talks about. If you're over 75 and you still pick up the phone to call a friend just to chat, still show up to a family gathering even when you could easily talk yourself out of going, still make the effort to remember someone's birthday or send a card for no particular reason at all, you are actively protecting your brain in a way that no supplement, no exercise routine, and no diet ever could. Loneliness has been studied extensively in recent years, and what researchers have found is sobering. Chronic isolation in older adults is now considered to carry health risks comparable to smoking 15 cigarettes a day, increasing the risk of heart disease, stroke, dementia, and premature death. But the opposite is just as powerful. Maintaining real active relationships, not just having people around, but genuinely engaging with them, listening to them, caring about what's happening in their lives, keeps your brain constantly working in ways that solitary activities simply can't replicate. Every conversation is a tiny cognitive workout, requiring memory, empathy, quick thinking, and emotional regulation all at once. So if you're still someone people call when they need advice, still someone who remembers the small details of other people's lives, you are, without realizing it, exercising some of the most protective circuitry your brain has. Here's another marker that tends to fly completely under the radar: your ability to learn a new skill, even a small one, even something as simple as figuring out a new phone, learning a few words of a different language, or picking up a hobby you've never tried before. Most people assume that after a certain age, the brain simply loses its ability to absorb new information the way it once did. But that's not entirely true. What actually declines, if anything, is the willingness to try. The brain itself retains a remarkable amount of what scientists call neuroplasticity well into old age, meaning it can still form new connections, still adapt, still grow, provided it's given the chance. People who continue challenging themselves with new skills in their 70s, 80s, and beyond tend to maintain sharper memory, faster processing speed, and a lower risk of cognitive decline than people of the same age who stick exclusively to familiar, repetitive routines. So if you've recently learned how to video call your grandchildren, figured out a new recipe, or started teaching yourself something you always meant to learn, understand that you're not just filling time, you're actively building the kind of cognitive resilience that keeps people mentally independent well into their 90s. And now, one final marker, maybe the quietest one of all, but arguably the most important, your sense of purpose. Not a job title, not a role you used to have, but a genuine reason to get out of bed each morning. Something you care about, something that makes you feel needed, useful, or engaged in something bigger than yourself. This might be caring for a grandchild, tending a garden, volunteering, mentoring someone younger, or simply maintaining a daily routine that feels meaningful to you personally. Longevity researchers who have studied populations with unusually high numbers of people living active, healthy lives past 90 and even past 100 have found that a strong sense of purpose shows up again and again as one of the defining shared traits. It's not just a nice philosophical idea. It has measurable physical effects, including lower levels of inflammation, better cardiovascular health, and even a reduced risk of conditions like Alzheimer's disease. People with a clear sense of purpose tend to take better care of themselves overall because they have a reason to. They eat a little better, move a little more, sleep a little more consistently, not out of discipline alone, but because some part of them understands that their life still matters, that people or projects or passions still depend on them showing up. If you're over 75 and you still wake up with something to look forward to, something that gives your day shape and meaning, you are living proof of one of the most powerful protective factors against aging that science has ever documented. So here's what I want you to take away from all of this. Healthy aging was never really about avoiding every wrinkle or chasing some impossible standard of looking young forever. It's about function, it's about connection, it's about curiosity, movement, laughter, purpose, and the quiet, ordinary choices that add up over decades into something extraordinary. If you recognized yourself in even a handful of what we talked about today, take a moment to genuinely acknowledge that because you have built something remarkable, whether you set out to or not. And if you're watching this on behalf of a parent, a grandparent, or someone you love who is navigating these later years, share this with them, not as a warning, but as a celebration of everything they've already accomplished simply by staying engaged with life. Because at the end of the day, the people who age the best aren't the ones who fought the hardest against getting older. They're the ones who kept living fully anyway. And if this video gave you even one new way of thinking about your own health or your own future, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button, because there's a lot more where this came from. And I'd love to have you along for the next one.